Hi there, y'all. I have been around the block a time or two, and I have played my fair share of JRPGs over these 40 plus years I've been here. Honestly, I really just can't get enough of them. But there were two that kind of flew under the radar back in the day over on the PSP, and that was Class of Heroes 1 and 2. I, however, did have the pleasure of playing those two little gems back in the day, but not a lot of other people did because they were really rare, especially the second game. But now we all have a chance to experience these two classics once again with Class of Heroes 1 and 2 Complete Edition launching both physically and digitally for the PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. And in today's video sponsored by P-Cube, I want to tell you all about these classics. For those of you unaware, the Class of Heroes games are both dungeon crawlers, using somewhat of like a wizardry class system but with a definite anime skin. But don't mistake that anime graphical style with sweetness and light, because this series is definitely on the harder side. These are dungeon crawlers, built like they used to be back in the old days. Remember those times where you couldn't just warp out when the times were tough? Where you really had to grit your teeth and fight your way through the dungeons tooth and nail just to get by. And while the two games do play similarly, they are entirely different beasts, with the most noticeable changes being the addition of difficulty modes in the first game, as well as the dungeons being randomized there, whereas the second game only has one difficulty level and the dungeons always remain the same. Now, let me tell you a little bit of the backstory and my history with these games. To do that though, we need to go back in time about 15 years. Gosh, back whenever I was teaching school in Atlanta and spending my summer breaks doing nothing but playing games for like 8 weeks straight. Those were some good times, if I do say so myself. The original games both came out on the PSP, where I first played them back in the day. But then, the second one was remastered as Class of Heroes 2G for the PS3, and then added all sorts of new goodies like more dungeons, skills, party members, and full Japanese voice acting. And because that physical print run was extraordinarily limited, it now costs quite the pretty penny. However, if you missed out on those classics back in the day, you are in luck, because with this package, you're not only getting the anniversary edition of the first game, but also the 2D version of the second game, both remastered and bundled together as one. Do keep in mind though, as far as the story is concerned, the two games are not really connected at all. It's kind of like the Final Fantasy series, with just some very loose connections, cameos, and inside jokes tying them all together, and you'll definitely notice them in the second game. But seriously, it really doesn't matter, you can play them in whatever order you would like. Both of these take place at an illustrious academy, but really the school is pretty much there just to serve as your home base, your respite between dungeons, your place to shop and gather up quests, but also really and truly, your excuse to just go out and dungeon crawl and beat up the baddies, because that really is the main meat of the game. And while you do play as kind of like a nameless hero, there's also a colorful cast of characters in the academy that helps move the plot along, each of them with their own backstory and personalities to boot. From the elderly erudite principal who only wants what's best for you, to the spunky girl in your class who just loves to tell you what to do, to your well-meaning but kind of bumbling homeroom teacher. Oh, and how can I possibly forget Giorgio, the muscle beauty in the alchemy lab of the second game? Yeah, I could not let this video go by without showcasing this little feast for the eyes here. Anyway, once you're done touring the school and getting a hang of things, you're sent off to create your party of 6. If you'd like, you could just use the pre-made characters, or you can create your own, choosing their name, class, gender, race, and alignment. Like I said before though, this is old school wizardry in an anime skin, so get ready. You're going to have to decide if a character is evil, good, or neutral. And also do keep in mind that your characters will get along better with other characters of the same alignment, and that certain classes are locked behind specific alignments too, such as the noble samurai not being able to be evil, and the sneaky ninja, he can't be good. Then you can choose from a ton of different races, and while the classics are there, like the elves, gnomes, and humans, there's also little kitty races, demons, fairies, and angels as well. And not only will your race decide what classes that you can become, but it will also decide your starting stats. And even more importantly, it can also bestow upon you racial skills, such as the ability to float, making those floor traps ineffective, or even giving you protection against instant death, or even allowing you to deal breath-based damage to the enemies. Now, not only do the races have their own unique abilities, but so do the classes. Like I said, this is involved. This isn't some sort of like bare bones paint-by-number character creator. You can really roleplay here, and you can build up your team to your heart's content. The classes are probably your most important decision, as they will determine your stat growth, as well as what weapons you equipped and what passive and active abilities that you get. Classes like the Ranger or the Thief are able to disarm traps, which is just essential as so many treasures are trapped, and the Noble Samurai can then dual wield weapons. In addition to their skills though, each class also gets access to magic. It's not like only the mages can cast spells, everyone has their own line of magic. So it really does behoove you to invest a lot of time, energy, and effort into creating the perfect synergized party to get through all these dungeons. But don't worry, you can still always change your classes later on down the line too, which is just great, because believe me, you're gonna need all the help that you can get. The battles here take place in a turn-based fashion, and enemies appear in rows, and if you're just fighting them using like basic melee attacks, you'll slowly pick them off one row at a time. But what I like to do is have my frontline attackers attack the enemies in the front, while my magic users blast the back rows with relentless spells. The combat itself is lightning quick, and it isn't overly difficult in and of itself. The difficulty instead comes from like accidentally wandering into the wrong area, or getting lost, or losing track of your HP and MP, or just going like a little tiny bit too far and not being able to get back to the academy in time. But as long as you are prudent in your exploration, you should be just fine. Another thing to take note of in the battle is your character's range, because you'll be placing them in either the front or the back rows, and if your characters have a short-range weapon, they won't be able to use them from the back row. Instead, they'll have to cast spells or something, or even just defend. And you can only attack from the back row if you have a long-ranged weapon equipped, like a bow and arrow or a sling, or if you have magic. But this also works both ways. Your characters in the back row can only be attacked with long-range attacks from the enemies. All that being said, there is a lot to think about before venturing forth into these dungeons. Overall, I've got to say that this is a really fun, mindless dungeon crawling RPG. One of those games that you don't have to like think too much about, if you know what I mean. You gotta go on into the academy, collect your quests, then dive into the dungeons, battling your way just a little bit further than the last time. And there's something to be said about these old school like shut off your brain and grind type of games. Nowadays we're bombarded with so much on our screens. This is a great kind of like in-between game, a palate cleanser, if you will, between AAA behemoths. Something that you do need to keep in mind though as you're playing is that it can be rather dated. I mean, the original game released back in 2009 in Japan. And well, back then there wasn't a whole lot of competition in the dungeon crawling genre. Now with the indie scene on the rise, there's definitely a ton of competition out there. So I would say that this is a game made for the fans, especially if you happen to be a fan of old school wizardry type games, then I think that you will find a little hidden gem right here. So that's it for my overview and spotlight of Class of Heroes 1 and 2 Complete Edition, releasing for the Nintendo Switch, PS5, and PC on April the 26th. Also, I've just got to say it, in today's day and age where a brand new game costs you like upwards of like $70, it's so nice here that you can get these two games physically on Amazon for only $40 total. That is a steal for a collector like me. So I've just got to know, did you play these games back in the day? Did you like them then? Or will this be your first time taking the plunge into this series? Let's get a discussion going on here and let's all talk and chat about it because I'm always in the comments too. And if you like what I do here on the channel, please head on over to the Patreon to sign up for early access to my videos as well as behind the scenes photographs. The link to it is over in the video description. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.